There are women who walk through the world as if they were made of quiet storms. You can sense it in the way the air seems to bend around them, not because of arrogance, but because their presence carries weight. They do not need to speak loudly. Their silence speaks for them. These are women with profound spiritual power, the kind that cannot be imitated, the kind that cannot be taught through words, only through pain, awareness, and surrender. Carl Jung once said that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. These women have lived that truth. They have faced their shadows, walked through fire, and emerged not with bitterness but with grace. The first hidden sign of a spiritually powerful woman is her relationship with pain. She no longer runs from it. She listens. She lets it break her open instead of tearing her apart. She knows that in the silence of suffering, God speaks in symbols. Such a woman understands that her wounds are not proof of weakness. They are portals of initiation. Every scar on her soul is a signature of transformation. And when she looks into the mirror, she no longer asks, "Why me?" but rather, "What is this teaching me?" That question changes everything. It turns tragedy into alchemy, loss into wisdom, chaos into divine order. You can feel her depth before she says a single word, because her energy carries memory. The memory of every time she chose peace over revenge, surrender over control, faith over fear. She doesn't demand understanding from others. She no longer needs validation. She has seen too much, felt too deeply, and learned that spiritual power is not about control. It's about alignment. And when she enters a room, her energy shifts the vibration. Some people will feel inspired. Others will feel uncomfortable, because her presence is truth, and truth has a way of revealing everything that is false. She doesn't have to expose anyone. Her authenticity does that naturally. She's a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face what they see reflected in her light. Another sign of her hidden power is her calm in chaos. She has learned the sacred art of stillness. Life may try to pull her into noise, into drama, into the whirlwind of others' emotions, but she has learned that silence is not weakness, it is weaponry. In silence, she hears the whisper of her intuition, the guidance of something far greater than logic. She has learned to pause instead of react, to breathe instead of explode, to pray instead of panic. Because when you live from spirit, you understand that not everything requires your energy. Some battles are meant to be handed to God. Some storms are not meant to be fought, only witnessed. Her strength lies not in control, but in her ability to let go without losing herself. And perhaps that is the third hidden sign: detachment without indifference. She can love deeply, but she is no longer enslaved by the outcome. She has learned that love is not ownership, it is freedom. When she lets someone go, she doesn't close her heart. She blesses them silently and continues walking, because she knows that whatever is aligned will always return, and what doesn't return was never meant to carry her spirit forward. Carl Jung often spoke of the anima, the feminine aspect of the psyche that connects us to the unconscious, the spiritual bridge between the known and the unknown. The women who embody this energy live between two worlds. They feel the invisible. They sense when something is off before words are spoken. Their intuition is not magic, it's mastery, trained through the suffering they survived and the silence they learned to hold. And because of that, they often appear mysterious, misunderstood, sometimes even feared, but they don't seek to be understood anymore. They know that those meant to meet them at their depth will find them, and those who cannot will drift away. This is what makes them rare. They live guided by something unseen. Their confidence is not loud, it is sacred. It is the calm that comes after storms, the clarity that comes after surrender, the beauty that comes after breaking. If you are one of these women, if your spirit has walked through silent fires and found light again, then know this: you are not too much. You are not strange. You are not wrong for feeling deeply, seeing clearly, or standing apart. You are the bridge between heaven and earth. Your power is not loud, but it is real. It's the kind of power that heals others simply by existing. The world may not always recognize it, but the divine does. And every time you choose authenticity over conformity, love over fear, purpose over comfort, heaven moves with you. So if this message finds you today, take it as a reminder that your spiritual power doesn't need to be proven, only lived. You don't have to fight for recognition. You only need to stay faithful to what you already are. Comment this phrase below: "My silence holds power." And if this spoke to your soul, subscribe, because what comes next will remind you who you truly are. There's something extraordinary about a woman who has learned to observe herself. She no longer lives only through emotion. She studies her own inner reactions like a psychologist observing a patient. This self-awareness is the fourth hidden sign of a woman with profound spiritual power. She no longer identifies with every passing thought, every temporary mood, every wound that tries to define her. She has learned to stand between the stimulus and the response, and in that pause, she finds her freedom. Carl Jung taught that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Spiritually awakened women have lived this truth in their own skin. They have realized that most of the chaos they once faced did not come from the outside world, but from the inner storms they had not yet named. Once they began to name those storms, fear, abandonment, resentment, guilt, the monsters began to lose their power. They know now that emotional maturity is not the absence of feeling, but the ability to hold feeling without collapsing. They can be deeply hurt and still remain centered. They can feel anger and still choose not to harm. That calm is not natural, it is earned. It's the result of years of inner observation, prayer, self-confrontation, and acceptance. The fifth sign lies in their relationship with solitude. For most people, being alone feels like a punishment. For them, it became a classroom. These women no longer fear their own company. In fact, they crave silence because silence has become the only space where they can hear truth clearly. The world speaks in noise, but the soul speaks in whispers. When a woman begins to feel comfortable in silence, she stops chasing validation. She stops seeking people to fill her emptiness. She begins to understand that being alone does not mean being abandoned. It means being present with herself and with the God that lives within her. Jung called this process individuation, the path of becoming whole, of uniting the conscious and the unconscious, of integrating all that was once split apart. Spiritually powerful women walk this path intuitively. They don't seek perfection, they seek integration. They understand that light without shadow is illusion. They no longer pretend to be positive all the time. They can look into their darkness without shame, because they know that true healing only happens when you stop running from yourself. They meet their fears like old friends, not because they enjoy the pain, but because they know that behind every fear lies a fragment of their power. And this leads to the sixth sign. Their emotional depth is not chaotic anymore. It has direction. They have learned to channel their emotions into creation, compassion, and understanding. What used to drown them now fuels their purpose. They may cry, but their tears are cleansing, not desperate. They may feel anger, but it becomes fuel for justice, not destruction. Their empathy runs deep, but it is no longer self-sacrifice. They no longer try to save everyone. They have learned that you can't awaken someone who enjoys their sleep. Their compassion is guided by discernment. They love with open hands, not clenched fists. The seventh sign is subtle but powerful. A woman of spiritual depth becomes magnetic without trying. People feel drawn to her, not because of her looks or words, but because of her energy. There's something grounded yet elevated about her presence. It feels safe, but also challenging. People leave her feeling seen, but also exposed. Because she sees beyond masks. She doesn't need to judge. She understands. Jung would say she has developed her feeling function, the rare capacity to perceive meaning through emotion, to sense the symbolic language of the soul. This makes her intuitive, empathetic, and frighteningly perceptive. She reads not just faces but silences, not just words but energy. And because of that, she cannot be easily deceived. She sees intentions before they become actions. This insight often isolates her, but she accepts it. Because she understands that spiritual power often comes with spiritual solitude. Not everyone is meant to walk with her at every stage of her evolution. Some people were only meant to teach her lessons, not share her destiny. That's another mark of her strength. She no longer resists endings. She knows that every loss carves space for new life. Every closed door is divine redirection. Her faith is not naive optimism. It's deep psychological trust. She understands that life is not against her. It is constantly shaping her into who she must become. And when she prays now, her prayers are different. She no longer asks for comfort, she asks for clarity. She no longer asks for control, she asks for courage. Because she has understood that real peace is not found in changing the outer world, but in mastering the inner one. She walks quietly now. But don't mistake her quiet for passivity. She's watching, learning, discerning. She knows that power without wisdom is destruction, and that wisdom without humility is illusion. So she keeps her heart soft even after being broken. She keeps her mind open even after being betrayed. And that is what makes her rare. She's both fire and water, logic and emotion, divine and human. If you are reading this and recognizing yourself in these words, then maybe you are one of them. One of the women Jung described without naming. One of the few who sees the invisible layers of existence and dares to face herself honestly. Comment this phrase below. I see the unseen within me. And if this message resonated, subscribe, because the final part will awaken something powerful inside you. There comes a stage in every awakened woman's life when she no longer needs to prove anything, not to the world, not to her family, not even to herself. This is the 8th hidden sign of spiritual power, inner authority. It's the quiet knowing that her worth no longer depends on being chosen, praised, or understood. She has faced her fears, dissected her illusions, and now walks with the calm of someone who knows who she is, and more importantly, who she is not. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Spiritually evolved women have accepted that privilege as their responsibility. They understand that self-knowledge is not luxury, it's survival. When you know who you are, manipulation loses its grip. When you know your truth, rejection stops hurting. When you know your value, silence becomes sacred. These women no longer chase purpose outside of themselves. They embody it. Their purpose is not a career or a mission statement. It is a way of being. It is found in how they love, how they respond, how they create harmony from chaos. They have realized that their existence itself is an offering. They don't need to talk about God all the time because their life has become a conversation with Him. The 9th hidden sign is their power to transform the energy of any environment they enter. Their presence has a psychological impact, not through control, but through coherence. Jung called it the integration of the self, the moment when a person becomes internally unified. Such women radiate stability because they are no longer fragmented. They don't just occupy space, they align it. People around them begin to mirror that energy. Some feel healed, others feel uncomfortable, because truth has that dual nature. It heals what's ready and reveals what's not. A spiritually powerful woman understands this dynamic. She no longer takes others' reactions personally. She knows that sometimes her presence triggers the shadows others refuse to face. But she does not shrink. She stands firm in compassion, not in defense. And then there is the final sign, the 10th one, the one that holds all the others together. Transcendence. These women no longer live through the lens of ego or identity. They are not attached to the image of the strong woman, the spiritual woman, or the wise woman. They have transcended even the label of power itself. Because they have learned that true power is not in having control, it is in surrendering it consciously. They can kneel without feeling small. They can love without losing themselves. They can forgive without forgetting the lesson. They have integrated the opposites Jung spoke of, strength and vulnerability, shadow and light, human and divine. They are whole. Their spirituality is not loud. It is woven into their psychology. It shows in how they treat others, in how they respond to pain, in how they carry peace, even when the world is falling apart. They are not trying to escape reality anymore. They are here, fully, courageously awake, and that's what makes them different. They don't need to manifest. They align. They don't need to force. They flow. They don't need to seek signs. They have become the sign. They walk with awareness that everything in their path, every joy, every heartbreak, every delay, is orchestrated for their growth. When they love, it's not from emptiness. When they forgive, it's not from weakness. When they speak, it's not to be heard, it's to bring understanding. Their presence becomes their prayer, their integrity, their protection, their peace, their greatest weapon. And even when life tests them, and it will, they no longer collapse into despair. They pause, they reflect, they listen, because they know that their evolution is never over. Every ending is just another beginning in disguise. Every loss is a hidden initiation into deeper consciousness. Carl Jung believed that the most terrifying thing for most people is to face themselves. These women do it daily. They meet their reflection not to criticize, but to understand. And through that self-understanding, they heal generations. Because every woman who heals herself heals the lineage that came before and the generations that will come after. That is the quiet revolution of spiritually powerful women. They don't need to destroy the old world. They build a new one within themselves. And through their example, others begin to remember what wholeness feels like. If you are reading this, perhaps you are one of them, or becoming one. You felt the shifts, the calling, the quiet inner knowing that your life was never meant to be ordinary. You are being refined, not punished, prepared, not forgotten, awakened, not broken. So keep walking, even when the path feels lonely. Keep trusting, even when clarity hides behind silence. Because somewhere unseen, the world is changing through you. Comment this phrase below: I carry light even in my shadows. And if this message resonated deeply, subscribe, because your journey toward becoming whole has just begun.